You know the drill. Every new smartphone on the market today comes with the ability to connect to a modern automotive head unit wirelessly, streaming your media with no wires. And I know this because at every new car launch and every new smartphone launch, said companies are as eager to tell you about it as a young Vogon poet tying you to a chair so you can't escape their latest sonnet. Few people out there own the latest and greatest car or phone, but what if you could add wireless connectivity to your older car with a little bit of magic? No, seriously. Meet the Magic Box. Well, I hate to admit it, much of my life is stored on one of these miniature monoliths. My schedule's on here, a bunch of handy notes about things, books I'm ferrying about, a list of contacts that, well, it goes back decades and has transferred messily from phone to phone, and a bunch of apps from Mastodon to OVMS that allow me to keep in touch with my friends, the news, what my charging station is doing. And when I'm popping down the shops in my car, I'll often use this box of beguilement as a source of music or radio, and if I'm taking a trip to Barnard's Star, maybe to check on some planning applications, then it's pretty likely I'll let this dubious device do the directions, either with a better route planner or for less road trippy trips just with my mapping application of choice. That's in part because I still listen to BBC Six Music despite having lived in the US for years, but it's also because despite progress from many automakers on their built-in navigation systems, they're often still, how shall I put this gently, not very good. Now, for a while, it looked like pretty much every modern car was going to have wireless charging and both wireless Android Auto and wireless CarPlay. But as we've whined about in multiple reviews, there are plenty of vehicles on the market, even right this minute, which don't have some important part of that equation. And if you do have a phone with wireless charging and a car that seems like it was designed around having wireless connectivity to your gaze-grabbing goblin, with a key charging pad placed conveniently and a lovely big touchscreen, and yet you're forced to plug your phone into a ridiculously placed USB socket down by the floor, definitely not looking at you, Hyundai Motor Group brands. For those of us who like to live in the wireless verse, that can be kind of annoying. Or maybe you have an older vehicle, one which does have wired CarPlay, but nothing else. Well, if you've watched the channel for a while, you'll know that back in the summer I tried out the AA wireless adapter, a small USB device you can plug into the head unit, which, in place of a phone, in theory serves as a wireless Android Auto adapter. And we tried that out with our Kia Niro EV, which rather irritatingly has a nice key charger placed so as to keep the phone with its discombobulating effects away from your field of vision, but which, contrary to the definitely believable claims of my car dealer, does not appear to have had an update to just, quote, enable wireless Android later. There's unexpected. Dealer making things up. Anyhow, you'll also know from our reviews that Hyundai Motor Group's head units seem to be curiously finicky about what cable they use and how the phone is connected. Unless you happen to have a very fresh cable and Vauxhall happens to be aligned with Hastromil in the sky, it's pretty common for the phone to disconnect at some point in a journey and need Geordie to pop up and reconnect it. And unfortunately, it turned out that the AA wireless unit didn't handle that very gracefully. It would disconnect and not reconnect, or it would disconnect repeatedly in a short space of time. After a few failed attempts at trying different cables, software versions and different configurations, AA Wireless offered a refund and I decided to go that route. Since then, I've been looking for a replacement, one which could perform the same functions but maybe work with Hyundai Kia's quirks. And eventually I happened on a review of the Magic Box, which does do that job but also does a bit more. So I checked in and was told that it should work with the Niro EV, and they kindly offered us a review unit. So let's have a quick look at what comes in the box. The first thing you see on opening the box is the device itself, which has a clear plastic film to protect that top coating. The box sports a USB-A socket, USB-C and an HDMI output. That's because in addition to its in-car roles, it can be used to stream direct to a device with HDMI if you add in the Magic Remote. Underneath is a velvet-esque piece of plastic. As I frequently comment, I would prefer to see something recyclable here. And beneath that are super short USB-C and USB-A cables and a printed quick start guide. Installation was pretty painless. I connected it to the car and then connected it to my home Wi-Fi network and it worked. That was it for the installation side. There are some quirks. It doesn't seem to pick up network time, so it constantly starts by telling me it's 10:47 in the morning, and sometimes it seems to show up on the Play Store as a Pixel 4 and sometimes as a rock chip. But other than that, it shows up as you'd expect, and using the Google Play Store you can install anything that's compatible. You can also, as with most Android devices, sideload applications. That is, download the package and install it yourself. It's not recommended that you do that unless you're someone who knows how to check the package you've downloaded is what you think it is and doesn't have any nasty viruses in. And it does come with YouTube and Netflix pre-installed. When you turn the car on and connect it, it appears to our Kia Niro EV as a CarPlay device, but remember, it's running Android, and unlike pretty much anything else I've tried, its connection to the car has seemed pretty stable. I've done multiple trips down to Portland and it's stayed connected most of the time with nary a hitch. I did have to reboot the head unit recently because it refused to connect. And Nikki, being Nikki, she couldn't resist playing with it when she was driving my car back to Portland after dropping a press car off here. Being as she's an Apple fangirl, she tried out the CarPlay functionality, which also worked really well. It pops up a reminder that you should not use it to watch videos or futz with it while you're driving, but there's no actual lockout to prevent you doing that while the car is in motion, so it is reliant on you being an honest and safe soul. Now, if you provide the device with an internet connection, then you can use the device as is, basically as a fancy Android head unit. However, because it's running generic Android, not Android Auto or Automotive, that does mean that applications don't always function in a terribly car-friendly way. Most things offer up a keyboard rather than defaulting to voice input, for example. I also found the Google Maps implementation painfully slow. That said, it does mean that you can use applications that aren't available for Android Auto and some applications that are available for Android Auto, but which have an implementation which isn't the best. And those applications work pretty well in standard format on this. Now, even driving our car with its rather optimistic 77 kilowatt maximum charge rate, and now it's winter, we're unlikely to see that unless we're maybe crossing a steep mountain pass on the freeway while towing. We rarely need to stop at chargers for more than half an hour, which, once you've deducted the 10 minutes to go and pee and maybe grab a snack, doesn't leave you that long. Now, while a walk would definitely be better for you, the weather in the Pacific Northwest is not always, shall we say, conducive to walking outside, and since there's often no shelter and some charging stations aren't in the nicest locations, that does encourage you to stay in the vehicle. So then it's nice to be able to use the car's in-car screen to share videos with your passengers, especially if yours is a little larger than the 8-inch affair the 2019 Niro has. You can cast to it or play them directly on the device using the YouTube MB-Plex or whatever streaming service you pay for app. That said, if you have the misfortune of arriving at an Electrify America charger that's working to what seems to be its usual standard at the moment, you may have a short wait for technical support or for repair, so having something short to watch for entertainment might be handy. To do that, you need to provide it with an internet connection, either a hotspot from your car, which the 2019 Kia Niro EV irritatingly does not have, or from your phone. Or if you're lucky and the charging station you're at offers a Wi-Fi hotspot, you can use that, obviously. The other function it offers, though, is the one I find most useful. That is, it offers wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto connectivity. Nikki's tested it with wireless CarPlay and it worked very solidly. I've tested it with Android Auto and my new phone, which makes this test a little tricky because my shiny new phone is wildly unreliable. It often shows no signal, it randomly ignores touchscreen taps. I could go on, but I do that on my Mastodon account. At any rate, it sometimes takes a couple of tries to get it to connect to Android Auto, and sometimes I've needed to reset my phone to get a successful connection. I'm suspecting that's my phone though, not the magic box. I've had to reset this phone a lot since I've had it. No, I mean a lot. I've had to reset this phone multiple times a day sometimes. But once it's connected, the connection has stayed stable. The car hasn't whined about excess battery drain when switching off the ignition, although I do sometimes need to manually disconnect from the Bluetooth when I get home if the car's on charge, because it will keep the Magic powered on for quite a while, and our house isn't large enough to disconnect from the Bluetooth purely because I'm far enough away from the car. Touching on the in-car touchscreen results in actions on the phone with very little, almost no perceptible lag most of the time. Often that's a problem with less powerful wireless adapters, and all in all it has done exactly what it says on the tin. There are a couple of minor minuses. It's noticeably slower to boot than the car, clocking in at around 20 seconds, which doesn't sound long, but means I'm sometimes joining the freeway by the time my phone and it have finished connecting. Again, bear in mind though that slow connection might just be my Pixel being a recalcitrant little toad. Other minuses: the case has plenty of holes to keep it cool. That does mean there's the potential for debris to enter the case, although the holes are small, so the debris, like the holes in the sky, would have to be thin. And this is perhaps the biggest minus for me, it is a fairly chunky object. While the AA wireless adapter, and I believe the Motorola MA1, can be easily hidden away, this would either need a longer lead so you could tuck it under the dash or a seat, or you just have to accept it's a fairly visible black box with blinking lights in the car. You can, of course, just unplug it and throw it in the glove box when you're not using it, but that rather negates the point of having a wireless adapter. All in all, it's performed well, and if you're looking for something to spruce up the usability of a car that's missing some part of the wireless in-car device experience, it's a solid choice with a nice feature set. That's it for today. If you liked it, you know what to do, and feel free to tip us with a super thanks. The comments are open for your thoughts, as is our Discord chat room, and links are down there. If you want more, subscribe, hit the bell, and follow the links below to regularly support us with a YouTube membership or Patreon subscription. You'll also find links to our Ko-fi, Bitcoin, and Swag store. Scrolling by on my right is our amazing list of Patreon charged up supporters, and shoutouts go to our self-driving tier supporters: Mike Weeder, Patrick Boyarski, Chris Maxwell, Brian Newton, Michael Goad, Bennett Elder, Andrew Martin, Pedro Muro Pinheiro, Brophy Wolf, Chris and Michael Johnson, Tesla in the Gong, Dan Blair, Peter Dillinger, Gordon C., Stephen O'Donoghue, Kyle Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Regine Fellows, Denny Hyde, Chris Ascenter, and Jim Burness. Finally, out of this world, thanks to our Starman supporters: Andrew Glenn, Anonymous Freak, JP Fagerback, Joe Bresney, John Lyons, Rory Litwin, Kevin Burrowbridge, Dave Kitchen, Laura Reynolds, Marcel Ward, Matthew Drobnak, Paul Conway, Reggie Watts, Will Raylan, and of course Ian. We'll be back soon with more videos, but until then, keep evolving.